A good lightweight boxer, the jab, been measured at about 52 miles an hour. And so if you've trained in these, if your instructor puts that silver tape around the bottom, it's called retinal retention tape. It's supposed to make it easier for you to track. So if you're doing non-contact drills with somebody and you're both using these, if you can get to where you can follow the end of this moving around and react properly, it's way easier when you're sparring against somebody empty-hand and they go and throw that hook. You're used to this, and that hook looks like it's a matrix move now. You've got all kinds of time to react. So 140 miles an hour, you can generate pretty good force with these, and there's enough videos and fight science things where they're hitting watermelons and cucumbers and stuff that prove conclusively that you can crush a human skull with this. Because you need to be able to generate 59 foot-pounds of energy to penetrate the, anyway. The downside is this is not nearly as lethal as they make it sound because you've seen the videos. Target of opportunity number one, teenage boy swinging this. When you hold it like this, you put both ends under tension. So you can release the bottom and hit them on the head. You can release the top and hit them under the chin. And you want to catch it and put it under tension again. And every once in a while, they'll screw up and go this way and end up smacking themselves in the head. And this is where you know, number one, the weapon is not as lethal as advertised because the guy gets back up. Number two, you know the person recording is his best friend. Because once he hits himself in the head and drops to the ground, he keeps recording. But it's shaking because now the guy's laughing his butt off. But it's still there. So that's mistake number one. They smack themselves in the head. Number two, when you spin this around, you can also bring it under your arm and catch it this way. So you have a free hand to deal with things like knives and stuff. And still keep that under tension so you can whip that forwards and strike again. The downside to that is if you're going to bring it underneath, you see how my elbow had to flare wide to give it a nice path and then come down and trap it? If you don't do that, if you're just trying to make this angle change, this is going to come flying underneath at 140 miles an hour and hit a bone that is really misnamed. Because if you hit that with a nunchaku at 140 miles an hour, you realize in a hurry there's nothing funny about it. Except that as soon as you hit that, if anybody's actually hit their funny bone hard, your entire forearm goes numb all the way down to your fingertips. And you're holding this, so what you've now done is gone, wah, and now created a projectile weapon. And it's, look, it's a bolo. So, you got to use this correctly, and everybody knows the third one. Because this is why teenage boys don't reproduce as often as they should. So it might actually be good for our population. You get hit in the groin. Because again, when you're swinging this, you don't want to swing it in a self-defense situation, bad guy attacking you with a knife, and you go and miss and just leave it there. Everybody knows a limp weapon's not very useful. So.
That was awesome.
Not what I meant. And thank you for getting your cue right. Every once in a while she'll miss and not do that, and everybody will be sitting there going, did he really say what I think he said? And see, when she does that, all of you know it's okay to laugh, because you would have anyway. But. So what happens is when you swing, you don't want that just there, so you're going to bring it back. The easiest way to do that is to actually use your body. You've seen the guys doing the spinning things where they bring it around behind their back, and what they're doing is they're making contact, wrapping it around their hips to be able to do a hand change and then catch it again. Alternately, if you're striking over the top, you can use your leg to help rebound and bring it back, and this is where guys get hit in the groin. The reason why, God, I have a really bad room for this, but the post in the middle, my right foot is pointed straight at it, which means my knee is in line with it. When you do this, you bring it forwards and down, bring it back, forwards and down, bring it back. Do you see what I'm doing with my knee? It's kind of hard to tell with the hakama. But I'm actually turning my knee to the outside. The reason why you do that is so you have a small angle change. It's easy to accomplish this way and bring it back. If you leave your knee straight, to get the angle change, you have to bring it around. And this is flexible. If you bring this out, this doesn't drop down. What it does is it goes around. And so when you're doing that with your legs straight, it comes around and you end up racking yourself. And now that I've shown you that and what to do, if you rack yourself now, it's your own fault. And we'll consider that not only a Darwin Award, but natural selection at work. Maybe it's best that you don't reproduce. And we'll get this defective gene weeded out.
Those were the best books ever.
Now, the cool thing about the nunchaku is they were actually pretty effective as a weapon for self-defense, but not so much in the way that you see them portrayed in movies. When you watch, did anybody see Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee?
Yes.
He has a super lightweight pair of these, and he's fighting in a cave, and all these guys are flying at him, and he's going, "Acha! Hua!" And these 120-pound Chinese guys are flying backwards and slamming into the walls and sliding down,
Yeah, no.
and you're going, no, those nunchaku don't even weigh a pound. That's not... You can strike hard with them, and that's cool, but what made these most effective as a self-defense weapon is also the reason why these are illegal in the state of Texas for law enforcement. Now think about it. Texas. You can get a carry permit for a bazooka in Texas,
Except nunchucks.
but you can't use these. Yeah, go figure. And I'm not exaggerating by too much. You can actually get a carry permit for an RPG. And just since we're at an anime con, I need to explain this.
Game.
RPG does not mean role-playing game, it means rocket, propelled grenade. So, you can use those in Texas for law enforcement, but not these. And this is why. Bad guy with a knife. Instead of keeping it here under tension and going, blah, because if you miss from this range, it's an easy movement in to end me. And then somebody's hitting the reset button and no one's going to play the Samurai Dan character in Mortal Kombat again. Because you know he's going to die. Because he's dumb. Not this way. This way. Hands in front of you. Modified kickboxing stance. Bring them down a little bit. Here, they're still under tension. So you can still snap it forwards and strike them. But what we're using these for is something much meaner than just hitting them in the face. Bad guy stabs, block, shift. Now, I would like to point out,
That's it, you're pinching me too hard in your face.
human forearm, there are two bones, radius and ulna. They are not designed to meet in the middle. But with a little bit of pressure from two sticks joined by a chain, you can change nature's design. I'd like to introduce you to a French word. It's called tourniquet. This is easy.
Please don't injure your wife. She knows where you sleep and has access.
So these were actually used to do nasty things against weapons. This is not foreplay, don't worry. My wife broke my nose in bed once, so let's not. And we were not doing what you
We
think.
heard that story.
Yeah, it was afterwards. We were just cuddling. These were used, and if we have anybody that does taekwondo, go, well, I don't punch, we kick. I know. And you would not believe what these do to knees and ankles.
As I say,
Oh,
yeah.
that's all the joint.
That really cool front snap kick that is the first
Not
technique
cool.
you learn gets shelved. Okay, I'm not going to make her go through the whole thing, but from this position, when that front kick comes in, you are looping underneath their heel and bringing it up enough to set it on your shoulder, loop it over the top, and then down on either side of the knee while you stand up. And now we don't have to worry about her. Not only can she not fight, she can't chase me either. So these were nasty, and the reason why they're illegal in Texas for law enforcement is because of the lawsuits. Because they are horrifying for trapping and doing evil things. The downside to these,
Like my sister.
no, she has her own pair. My wife is amazing with a sword and with the naginata. She's a shooting instructor, specializes in shotgun,
Yeah.
but flexible weapons and handheld throwing weapons, she's a menace to society. If we were standing right here and she was trying to hit me with the throwing star or something, you're more likely to get hit than I will. And the only redeeming thing for my wife is that Allie's actually worse with them.
That whole sports part where your brain tells your hand what the timing for when to let go.
I was standing next to you and you were throwing them at the door in our hotel room. And she hit me.
Did it bounce off?
It was an accident, and like no one's that bad. Yes, she is. Because I took her to the dojo and we set up the target for the throwing stars and everything, and I was completely off the floor and we just let her throw.
Still hit you.
Close!
You got
Did
rebound.
anybody see the Kevin Costner movie, The Bodyguard? Remember when he was doing the throwing knives, dude? And he zing, look, maybe you shouldn't stand over there either. That's Allie. The only cool thing would be arming both of them and then just closing them in the room and we all just wait outside for one of them to win. And I know who's gonna win. She will. Not by throwing it, but she's gonna chase her down and stab her to death with foam nunchaku. Because these are my wife. This is my wife's version of these. They're the only
They're
ones
safer.
that we'll let her use. And she has still sent this across the room because it's foam covering PVC pipe. And she'll whip this around fast enough without having a tight enough grip and it will slide right out.
The foam
And
comes
she'll end
up.
up throwing it. It looks like she's using summer sausages on a string, the sausage on a string. And one of them breaks. She hit my son right in the nose with them.
Well, at least it was
As
called.
long as it wasn't me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
So
Okay.
the downside to the nunchaku, there's two main ones. First is there's just not a lot of reach. Okay, you can't hit somebody from very far away where you was going to come apart, or you were
Of course
still
I'm gonna flinch.
you were still
For that, you
reliving
already were
the story
that.
about my wife having the foam come out. This is why I do these channels and not her. The second problem is this. This is a wooden stick, and this is chain, but normally, feudal Japan, they just use a leather cord. So here we are, invading samurai with a sword, and me
And a leather
with two
cord.
small pieces of wood with a leather cord.
That's
And I
not
go,
it, well.
fwa! And she goes, shoop, and cuts it off, and I'm left with a stick with a little rope hanging down from it.
Run! Turn around
It's like
and
a
run!
swing at the playground that has the swing part gone, it's just the ropes hanging down. It doesn't work very well against somebody with a longer weapon and a sharp weapon because these just wouldn't stand up to that, to being cut. So let's move on to, this was actually a farm tool as well. Anybody sure? They had
Threshing grain, yeah.
a question?
It was used
Yeah.
for threshing grain, right?
Threshing wheat.
Yeah.
When you harvest wheat, and this is really cool that we can talk about farming stuff because we're farm kids from Iowa, and this is how I grew up. No, it's not. Not that old.
Not Iowa.
Uh-huh.
She was the real farm kid. We had an acreage, which
Yeah.
means we had a couple ponies and a pond with fish in it, and barn cats. That was the extent of our livestock. And cats are hard to herd,
Yeah.
and there's not a lot of meat when you butcher them.
That depends on the cat.
We had a tomcat that was big enough that it chased our hogs. Jumpin' Jack Flash had that voice of oh, he was awesome. Anyway, the neighbor dogs were afraid of him. This was used to thresh wheat because when you harvest wheat, you have to separate the part you can cook with and has value to the crap stuff that you just call chaff. So you would take a sheet, lay it on the ground, and put the wheat, and you would smack it over. That would be part of the job you would like, is hitting it over and over again, and then you would take the corners and flip it up, and the chaff would kind of float away, and the wheat product would stay. And then you could make soba noodles. I like soba noodles with the beef udon. Anyway, so it was a farm weapon. A farm tool. But let's move on to one that's more fun. And actually sharp and shiny.
You started gone already?
The Kusari Gama was this on a chain.
Yeah. That's just a comma.
This is a hand scythe.
It's like a big
You can call it a comma, but every time you say that, I flinch because I think my editor is thinking my punctuation was off in my last one. Comma. No, semicolon. Leave me alone. The comma. Now, these are still something you can buy. It's a gardening tool. You can find these at Walmart for $10.88. $9.88 if you find the price is falling sign. But if you buy one of those $10 ones at Walmart and you take it home and use it for the reason it was intended, and that's digging in the flower bed or the garden bed, cutting up, breaking up clumps of dirt and clay and cutting out weeds.
They're sharp.
They're sharp, but they're really cheaply made, and if you hate gardening and just want to get done as fast as you can, you're going to break that in a half an hour.
Yeah.
Don't ask how I know.
You can guess.
But that's because it's basically a balsa wood stick with a little metal cap that has a blade off of it. And so they're cheap and crappy, and most of the things you order in a martial arts catalog kind of look like that. But you remember when I said at the beginning of the lecture that Japan was a caste system, and if dad was samurai, child was samurai. What that meant for the samurai is that their swords were passed down from generation to generation. For farmers, their tools were also meant to be
Heirlooms.
heirlooms because they had value. Working with steel, steel was very rare in Japan. And so their tools were designed to be durable and long-lasting. And the kama, this is one big piece of steel that comes this way and then bends down, and is actually, the wood handles are held on by two rivets, here
So it's
and here.
sandwiched.
Yes.
It's got a tang.
Oh yeah, full tang, all
Big
the way,
tang.
all the way. For the usable ones. If you get something that's half tang and actually cuts off here, all that stress and tension goes right there, and if you hit something solid, it'll crack. Just like a half tang sword blade. You don't do that with a two-handed grip. These were really, really surprisingly effective for hand-to-hand combat. If you look at the nose of it, it's curved and sharp on the inside, where the edge is really narrow, and the back is wider, so it narrows this way. It also narrows this way. So you have it coming to a point. If you've ever seen the horror movies, there's always, at some point in the movie, in a slasher flick, there's a chick running from the bad guy. She's usually a former Playboy playmate, and she's running towards the camera in slow motion with her clothes coming
And
off.
trips over an invisible
And I'm okay with that. But even if she's an Olympic sprinter, at some point she's going to trip and fall down.
on nothing.
And even though she's been running for at least 5 minutes in slow motion towards the camera, and the bad guy with the mask is walking like this, as soon as she falls down, before she can get back up, he's there. And while she's laying there going, no! He reaches out and takes a spork and sticks it through her skull. And you're like, all right, that's it. You can't penetrate the human skull with something like that easy. I've lost interest in this movie. That wasn't realistic. Because up until that point, the movie was totally real.
Yeah.
And you're like, you can't penetrate the human skull like
Don't take
that.
bet.
Actually, with some weapons you can. You just need the right toy. The kama worked really well for that. And one of the ways that we practice that today with these, because you have to develop that skill. It's a short arc movement with the elbow and wrist, less with the shoulder. You actually put coconuts on a table and go, "Shoop." You're nodding like you've done this before. Probably some other ill-advised tests too, haven't you?
I've
So,
seen enough
you
videos.
put them on the table, you put the coconut there, and if you do it right, it will go through the top of the coconut, all the way through,
And
stick
bottom
through the
of the
bottom,
table.
and then stick it to your 8-foot wooden table.
How many holes are in the table because of you doing that?
A lot.
And if you do it wrong, remember the inside sharp, the outside edge is not, and it curves and comes to a point, which means if you don't get the arc right and you turn that just a little too early, you hit the top of the coconut with this part, which isn't sharp, but you're still going fast, so what it does is, you've made a coconut projectile.
And possibly stab yourself in the thigh.
No,
Oh, not that bad. That's what the table's for.
it's just a big old hole in the table.
However, we have gone boom and sent a coconut flying. My son and I were practicing
Oh,
this.
dear. How many
And,
windows?
well, look,
Was it his nose?
window. Because, well, there's our house, here's our yard, here's the street. You don't set up this way because there's no insurance company in the world that's going to buy, I lost my windshield
To a
to a
coconut
flying
that floated.
coconut in Iowa. Because unless a European swallow drops it while flying,
That could
Sorry.
be a New Year farmer's commercial.
Yeah.
Covered it.
because we've seen it. So we were set up, I didn't want to do it towards the street, so I went this way and sent it right into the window.
And that way. Cornfield.
Should have aimed at the cornfield.
I didn't think
Another
about
house.
turning the table down. It's like, sometimes I'm very
You
two
coordinate.
So
dimensional.
you
Not to.
Iowa advantage.
Let's just
So-
say the afternoon even got entertaining when a coconut came through the window and I figured out what the boys were doing outside.
Was that coconut?
Yeah. What the? Oh.
Yeah, but in real life, she didn't cut off that sentence right there. And I could hear it because the
A long
acoustics are
stream of
much better when there's no glass between them.